Hello, everybody. Back on the podcast today, but today's a special day. Today we're with our artist, Josh Calloway. All the artwork that you see in Barnburners and Noblemen, this is the man behind it all, and he's done a great job. And he just watched the newly released official Kickstarter trailer video. Josh, what are your thoughts?
Ah, man, it's looking awesome. To see all of our work kind of come together in this epic looking trailer, to have the music, the voiceover, all the animation. It's pretty amazing to see the culmination of all of our hard work. I'm really enjoying it.
Yeah, and shout out to Dave from Mesa Game Labs, the 3D artist who
thank you, Dave.
took all of Josh's work and put it together. Just amazing, amazing. Um, well, we're excited. Launch is coming up in just a few
Yeah.
days. I specifically wanted to dive in a little bit to you, Josh, and just share with our community the person behind a lot of this artwork. So if you want to really quick, just go into a little bit, tell us a little about who you are and what you do.
Yeah, so I'm Joshua, and I've been an illustrator and concept artist for a little over a decade now, working in tabletop games, video games, a little bit of film, doing the majority of like character design, but also dabbling in environments, game pieces, illustrating game components, and then spent a few years on some of the logistics sides of translating that information into how do you run campaigns, how do you build entire IPs and brands, and how do you launch and build products from the ground up. So that's been the majority of my work as a professional artist.
And you're so good at it. You've really
Thanks.
helped us build this world of Barnburners and Noblemen and the fantasy world of Enemir through like maps and other things that go outside the game mechanics. You've
It's
done
my
such
pleasure.
a good job at helping us see that vision. Specifically with games and character design, I guess. What got you into that? Because I remember when how I got in contact with you, I saw your artwork on DeviantArt, and it just looked so immersive and amazing. I'm just curious, what kind of led you into that world of games, but also character and environmental
Yeah.
art like that?
That's a great question. I think it was sparked from my childhood. I'm looking up because I have in my office, I have a Ghost in the Shell and an Akira poster. And those were like Major from Ghost in the Shell, Akira, were two kind of titular characters that really stuck with me from an early childhood. And that's where I really started to see how well-designed characters were much more than just a costume, like what they wore. It was really about what is the emotional impact that can leave like kind of make an imprint on a viewer. And that kind of drove me to really delve into what is character design beyond the costume, to really find out like what is this character's motivations, what are their desires, what do they fear, what are their conflicts, their tensions. And I've always really enjoyed that kind of story dynamic that makes a character feel alive and makes it much easier to connect and resonate with.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome to hear, and we totally see that in our characters. And that kind of pushes us into, in a game, artwork is so important. But maybe I would love to hear that from your perspective. I feel like for our game, Barnburners and Noblemen, we've been trying to take every new step and trying to create it with the utmost quality, and artwork was kind of like the first step for that. But from your perspective, how do you see the importance of artwork in any tabletop board game?
It really builds a connection from the player to the mechanics. Like in early board game development, as you know, like you're building out how are we going to play this game? What's the flow? What's the pacing? Where's the fun? And while that is very much like the meat and potatoes of the game, the way you package it and present it to the player helps them to bridge that immersion so that the artwork is supporting the mechanics, but also really draws the player in and helps them to connect on a more personal level to this becomes my favorite character, or this becomes my favorite place to explore. It's that human element uh, that really draws me into wanting to help people like you create fun games, and make it look beautiful, make it look cool and immersive, and bring it to life.
Yeah. Well, you are so talented at that, and we are glad that we were able to find you. Kind of going into that artwork skill you have, I just am curious. What's like some of your workflows? Like, I know how what I send you, like when we made those characters, I know it's been a while, but like I'll send you a design brief. I'll give you some inspirations from my ideas.
Mm-hmm.
But what's your workflow as an artist? I always get so curious about that because every artist is different. And I'm just curious how you go through that workflow, go through that feedback into the final delivery. Like, what's that
Yeah.
process like?
Um, Being a professional illustrator, concept artist, I'm in the service industry. And I also teach as well, and that's what I tell my students a lot. The difference between like making your own products and working for clients, working for companies is my job is to bring your vision to life. So there, in the early stages, there's a lot of um, sketches, thumbnails, like working out the nitty gritty of here's what you're looking for, here's how I could envision that, and let's find a common ground so that you not only feel that your ideas and your vision is being supported, but that I'm bringing my own kind of personal flavor and take to it to, as best as I can, kind of elevate it. And that, that's the years of practice and training, learning how to draw, all the fundamentals. But then also, what are the personal experiences that I've had in my life that can bring a little bit of a Josh Calloway touch to the designs, a little bit of an emotional impact that helps that to connect to the audience even more. And then um, it's pretty much the same regardless of the clients I work with. It's initial meetings, laying out ideas, getting the briefs, isolating what are the key elements you're looking for, providing some options, and then back and forths over the course of sketches, rough drafts, color roughs, and then once the final is delivered, any kind of final tweaks or adjustments before that delivery. I've also learned over the years to plan for unforeseen things that a client may, like, as projects, especially as in tabletop projects can evolve, and as the artwork and the mechanics are sometimes shifting, sometimes as the project develops, there can be some unforeseen, how do you say, like, ideas that come up. So having simple plans of breaking down layering systems in Photoshop when I create my illustrations so that a character is isolated on its own layer, and a background on its own layer. And I know we did this from the start because you knew you wanted to have kind of cutouts or standees. But that simple thing allows for possibilities along the way where a client may say, "Oh, we realize we want to have a poster of this character. Can you give us just the character?" And if I plan that from the start, that saves some headaches of like, "Oh shoot, I didn't do that, so now I have to cut out the character manually and erase." And yeah, just plan for unforeseen things.
Oh, that's so true. We literally just had a situation last week where I'm like, okay, give us our game map, but take the hexes off because the animator needed it. And it's funny how like that is so true. It's so smart to be. That's what comes with experience, probably, is that you see what often happens and you prepare yourself to be able to deliver quickly without getting in these huge, deep ruts again of like, oh crap, I got to go back. Like that's
Yep.
definitely some wise wisdom for artists. For sure, that's awesome. Um, Talking about workflow, and obviously we've worked a lot in together, especially in the like a couple like a year or so now because the characters have been done for a while. Obviously there's been some stuff, but I'm curious you made so much stuff for us. You made us characters, you made us the map, you made so much stuff. I'm curious, what was one of your favorite things to make? Like the thing that you like, oh wow, I really like this. And then after that, I want to ask what was one of the hardest things, but I just want to hear some of that inside scoop
Yeah.
from the person making all the stuff.
There was so much. I can kind of isolate it into a few different components. My favorite character, I think, was Sir Montague, and part of it was a little bit of like this battle scene. He's not fighting, but it's a little bit war torn, which is fun. But also, I really enjoyed working on him riding the horse. I think one of the pilgrims too are on horses. But yeah, I really enjoyed Sir Montague and kind of painting and composing that image. My favorite thing overall, I think, was the game map, because the actual board that everyone plays on. As you know, we went back and forth on that. That was a pretty extensive piece of artwork. I think that was almost like 80 hours worth of work put into all the intricate details, the back and forths, and then mixed with the mechanics, right? Like the way players had to interact with it to play the game had to also coincide with the artwork. So that was a really fun endeavor to kind of build out that map.
Yeah, that map is a masterpiece, and I don't think everyone fully like maybe recognizes that, but for anyone watching, if you get the game map, like spend some time looking at the elements. Like if you look closely, it was like super important for me, and obviously Josh was on the other side making it, but like I wanted to make an immersive world. I wanted people to see inside these little barns that were on fire, these old ruins. I really wanted to, like the little oasis in the desert, I wanted it to feel like, oh my gosh, this is almost like a bird's eye view of like a fantasy map, but it feels more interactive. And even to the point of like, I didn't want the hexes, I wanted them to be like the pass to be low just enough so you could see them, but I didn't want to take away from the artwork. And we went back and forth that forever. Like that was like 40 or something revisions. It was crazy how much we went back and forth. But I just love that, because especially mixed with just the element of opening up the map, like at least the standard map, you open it up like a triangle, and it just feels like, oh, this is an interesting way to open up. And then you open it up and then you almost are entered into this amazing world that's just so cool. And like you said, like you got to work the mechanics of the game into the art. Like, so that 19 hex distance was extremely intentional, because our characters are balanced for a 19 hex across map and their amount of movement and stuff like that. And then the natural barriers of cliffs or waterfalls that add to the actual, you can't, well, like the no walk zones and stuff like that. Just so cool. And even down to like the little statue of the king in our lore, is Abner Luminar, who has the broken statue. And then I loved how we were able to tie that into the video, because it's this game in the lore takes place right after this long line of kings ends, and there's no obvious replacement. So the different established factions now are fighting for who should take control and who should have like the best idea for the land of Endymion. So it's just like, it's so cool to see the artwork display so powerfully what we're trying to push in this game, down to the tiny details. And so, and there's even all whole artwork. There's even some Easter eggs here and there. And so it's just a really, we just love that. That was a really cool piece. I think that's sweet. That was one of your favorites, because that's one of my favorites too to see in the game. What was one of like the most difficult, and maybe it's the same, but like what was one of the most difficult or things like, oh man, this was really hard?
I don't think necessarily like difficult, but the world map that you had me take on was a different challenge. I play D&D in my like off time, and I've made a world map years ago, like when I was in high school. I just drew it up, so it was a really nice like full circle, kind of coming back to doing something kind of in a professional field. But the trying to like bridging the challenge of taking your vision for what was the layout of the landscape with all the intricate details of kind of making this world map, and laying out
Mm,
the forests, the mountains, the fields, all the little buildings. I think that was the most challenging thing, because it was a little bit more. There's still illustrative aspects, but
mm-hmm,
it had a little bit of like a cartography vibe that I had
mm-hmm.
never truly delved into before. So that was something challenging and new that I really enjoyed, but was probably like the hardest thing I would say on the project.
Yeah. That to me, the fact that the diversity in your skill, that you can go from a character to like a detailed gameplay map to literally a fantasy map, and I'll put it up on the screen so everyone can see, but like that map is immaculate. It feels like a D&D or a Middle Earth or a really cool world map that is so important to us because although it doesn't have anything to do with the mechanics of the game, it plays into the building our world of
Mm.
enemy and the characters that live in it, down to like I'm like, oh, can you add a few more ships in the sea in this harbor? And actually, can you put a little dock right outside of Vendorsville at Aetherlock Lake? Because that's where one of our characters is a ferryman. It's just like down to those random things that you're probably like, what are they thinking? But it's helping us build this world. And I
Yep.
love that we were able to like present that world too, like on the back of our rule book, the very, like if you flip it over right when you have it,
Hmm.
a beautiful version of that map that you can really look in and you can see different cities, a lot of which all our characters are from that world, and so you can find different places where they're from and stuff, and even kind of an Easter eggy. But if you look on the back of our gameplay board, there's kind of like a rustic kind of weathered version of our
Yeah.
world, almost like a map type thing, just to add again to that
Hmm.
immersive element. We obviously want to make a fun game mechanics wise, but we really want to like make a world that people get excited about. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm glad you brought up that world because I do think that is going to be sweet, and that's going to be tied into our expansions in the future. They're going to be story based. They're going to be like, oh, these
Hmm.
three characters or four characters from this little battle or this little area are
Yeah.
coming out in a new pack, and it's going to be like there's going to be a story behind the characters that are released, and we need a world to place them in. So that
Mm-mm.
was such a cool thing. I'm glad you brought that up because I loved that element.
Yeah,
Um,
and I like that you bring up the story element because as I was making it, especially towards the end, I was already making up little stories like in my head, of what it would be like to travel from this point or
yeah.
to this point, or like go through these mountains. It brings so much possibility to the world.
Yeah. And it's cool too, is like there's kind of themed. So the northern
Mm-hmm.
gray, the upward mountainous greenish kind of jungly area, that's like the
Mm-hmm.
where the alchemists generally are. And then the western harvest, full fields where all the food for the island and the land is grown. That's the Barnburners, that more, middle class, blue collar, working type
Yeah.
culture. And then
Yep.
the east coast, the Cobalt Coast is where like noblemen and all kinds of factions are, but the nobleman
Mm-hmm.
stronghold is the political, more, they're more like yeah, political faction. And then you got
Yep.
the southern waste with the
Yeah.
desert and the islands and all the ships and Lender's Point where the merchants are focused. All these elements that help give life to the characters we see on the artwork, which is,
Mm-hmm.
which is really cool. And then,
Yeah.
yeah, I just love that. The another thing about art that you created that we just get so much good feedback in, and you did half of it, and then our manufacturers the other half, is the coin. The coin from the
Yeah.
beginning was such an epic thing, and it's like a big it's a big ask to like, okay, create something that's going to be casted in metal, and you
Yeah.
totally just nailed it out of the park. And the fact that on one side we have our motto, attack, collect, conquer, and we have Abner Luminar, that same king that's on the statue that's destroyed in the middle of the map, so it
Mm-hmm.
just ties in with the world. The fact that we made it hexagon, so one of our
Mm-hmm.
characters, Jangles, and potentially future characters can actually play that coin on our map to interact with the map.
Yeah.
And it's just like, just how even that component combines with the artwork, and it just looks so beautiful. And then the fact that our manufacturer was able to make such a sweet feeling coin.
Yeah. Turned out great.
And I love that we really pushed to like go for the coin, because we could have gone cardboard and saved so much money. But I feel like when people experience playing with coin, it adds
Mm-hmm.
such value to the game that is
Yeah.
almost like unmatchable. Like you couldn't even get close to that with the cardboard. So I just want to give shout out to you. So many people, almost everyone
thanks.
we talk to, like, oh my gosh, the coin, the coin, the
Yeah.
coin. I'm like, oh,
It gives like a
I
cool
agree.
tactile feel to the game. Yep.
Yep. And it's fun that people actually, it affects people's strategy choices too. There's almost a feeling of like, it's just this idea of shiny objects that human beings love, they're drawn to. So sometimes you're like, if in doubt, I don't mind getting a nice weighty coin in my ownership. Like there's something about that actually some people roll for coin just because it's hilarious. But yeah, it's
just collect all the
such
coin.
a cool element. Yeah. Well, Josh, thank you so much.
Yeah,
this was
thank
awesome.
you.
It's so cool to kind of get behind the curtain look into the artwork of Barnburners and Noblemen, and we're just obviously so grateful and thankful for you. And we're so excited for the world to really see that artwork on display during our launch, Tuesday, July 1st, 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Make sure everyone go to Kickstarter, pledge 9 a.m. And thank you, Josh, and we'll be in contact, I'm sure.
Thank you, Jed. Cheers.
See ya.
Bye.